We're closing out on yet another amazing growing season here in Zone 7B. Although I love my garden so much, if I could go back in time, there are a lot of things that I wish I could change. And for anyone that is designing their own garden, I want to share these mistakes with you so that past me could learn from them. So we're gonna go over the top 5 mistakes that I did in my garden and what I wish I could change so that hopefully you can learn from it. And if I were ever gonna redesign a garden, I would definitely do these 5, and you definitely want to stay till the end because the last one is a game changer. To kick things off, the first thing that I would change is the general just layout and design of the garden. Now, we've already moved some boxes and it was a lot of work. Last year, we did not have these 6 4x8 beds, and they definitely have helped create more growing space. I love having raised garden beds because you can amend the soil that you're working with, and you also don't have to be on the ground working. So I would still keep raised garden beds and continue to work from them. I also just love the look of a raised garden bed setup, and I would just really change the configuration. So what I would do here is instead of having the boxes have 4 feet from the edge, so you can see over here, there's a big buffer of edge here. I would just go straight along the outer walls of the garden with beds. This way, you really don't have to worry about less creatures would be able to access because you would build up a few feet of boxes generally on the side, so you don't have to worry about smaller rodents getting into your garden, thinking bunnies or groundhogs easily getting in. And that's going to be one thing that's going to help. Also, just a better use of the space. Because we have that 4-foot edge around the entire garden, it means that we have areas that we have to maintain that we cannot be growing in. So I really wish that we had just done the outer edges and then from there actually created more succinct rows. I would also make it a lot easier and a lot more narrow of rows. We have a 4-foot row between every single bed, and I would definitely narrow that to anywhere between 2 feet to 3 feet, probably stay closer to a smaller edge, but make it something that's easily maintainable so that you can bring in a mower and maintain that ground. Which brings me to mistake number 2. I really wish that we had done a different flooring on our garden. Now, it's pretty expensive to do rock, but I love the look of rock or sand, and I love that there's a lower maintenance level that goes into this. Moving forward, we are thinking of laying cardboard and doing mulch because it is a decompostable organic matter that we can be using. The grass is nice because you can be like weeding and just throw your weeds down, and it's very careless, but the maintenance and the amount of time that you need to take in order to mow the areas, to go in between, is just not favorable. And going with the mower and the weed whacker along some of the wooden garden boxes is causing a lot more wear and tear than we would have wanted to have if you didn't have a grass flooring that you had to maintain. Over here is our little watering area. This is where all of our water connects out of. I have actually unplugged our hose right now because we're doing some upgrades to our watering system, and this is definitely a huge mistake that when we were designing our garden, I wish we had really thought about the watering system and an irrigation system. We didn't really think about it at the beginning. We thought about how we were going to be collecting and watering our plants. We do have a large watering system set up from our barn over here. So you can see we have our barn, and then we do have a watering system that we collect water into big tubs, and we're able to store a lot of rainwater here. Because we do have water that runs on a septic tank, we don't really have enough water to be using our house water on our garden, so we do have to collect our own water. When building out the garden, we thought a lot about this, but we didn't think about how we would actually water all of our plants. We have a lot of beds. As you can see, there's just so many different things going on behind me, and we didn't actually think about the fact that we would manually need to water our plants multiple times per day in the heat of August, and this has been a big time suck, as well as required us to be home for the entirety of the growing season. Going away on vacation is not really an option during the growing season because we would need to find someone that could actually water our plants. And it makes it a lot harder when you have a very large garden and you have to be entrusting someone into watering your plants. So I would definitely think about a way that you're going to actually have some type of drip system, irrigation system, or way they're going to be able to water all of your garden so that if you don't want to be there all summer, you don't have to, and you don't have to put in all of that manual work. It can take a really long time going around and watering all of your plants, and if you miss them, it can cause a large portion of your garden to be hurt. So I really wish that we had thought this through before we built out any of the garden. I've talked a lot about this in the past. What is the best way to build raised garden beds? In our garden, we have around 2 foot high and in some areas 1 foot high Douglas fir wood raised beds, ranging from anywhere from a 4 foot by 8 foot to the largest bed being 8 foot by 8 foot. Or a 4 foot by 16 foot. Now I love some of the nice long beds like we have here, which is a 4 by 16. This offers a lot of growing space, although I really don't think you need a full 4 feet between them. I'd probably do more like 2 to 3 feet wide because you just don't need this much space, and some of the center of the bed really isn't utilized, especially in our 8 foot by 8 foot beds. You cannot even get to the center, so I would just scrap that size bed all together. And when we talk about materials, honestly, Douglas fir is not my favorite. When we actually created the beds, we used the shishibang method, which is the burning of the wood. And this was meant to make sure that it would treat the wood and allow it to withstand Mother Nature. Although it does not withstand Mother Nature very well. You can see that there's a lot of warping on our beds. A lot of the edges have warped out. There has been a lot of wear and tear. This is even 3 years later. You can see the color is completely different from our original coloring. And we have done staining on top of it every year. We will treat it with a stain as well, just to make it help withstand a longer amount of time. We've also had a really big problem with carpenter ants as well as termites in our area, just going in and destroying the wood. So in the back of our garden bed, we had the same 4 foot by 16 beds, and we actually had to unassemble them and turn them into these 1 foot high beds because the wood was just so bad. The quality was just so low, so we had to remove some of it, and I really wish that if I were to go back in time, I would honestly do the entire garden in just metal beds or a metal with wood like this type of look, or I would just use a completely different type of wood. There's definitely a big debate on the best type of wood for a raised garden bed. I think Douglas fir came in at a lot cheaper at the time that we were building this, and it is a more organic wood. We used organic methods for treating it so that it would not seep into our vegetables being grown here. But the fact that it really can't withstand the test of time and Mother Nature, I would choose something different. Something like cedar could be really nice, although it is a lot pricier, or maybe a pressure treated wood, but you're lining the inside so that the pressure treating does not seep into the foods that you're growing. Definitely, I would do a lot more research in that area, and I would not suggest Douglas fir because of the wear and tear that it's had in our garden. Number 5, and probably one of the most important changes that I would make if I was redoing my garden, is actually choosing a lot more perennials to be growing than annuals and designing the garden around that. Right here we have a nice lush forest of asparagus. I have beautiful fruit trees in the back here, which we actually changed and updated more recently in the past year, and I have multiple strawberry beds going behind me. What's really nice about this is it's low maintenance. It's plants that I don't necessarily have to be worrying about watering all the time and maintaining throughout the gardening season, and I can reap the benefits of for years and years to come. My asparagus are going to continue growing for 20 years, and every year they just keep getting better and better, and the work needed to have them grow is lower and lower. I know that if I were going to be planting my garden again, I would really focus on creating more of a food forest and not necessarily a farm, having to actually go in and sow plants every single year. This will restrict you on what you can grow, but creating spaces where I can grow vegetables that I love versus perennials that are going to be so much easier, and I still love them very much. There's just not as many options. Is something that I would really think about if I were going to be rebuilding my garden. These are just a few things that I wish I thought about when we were building our garden. There's definitely so much more, but if you can think about the design, how you're actually going to be watering your garden, potentially the area and sun that you're going to be using in that garden and what you're going to be growing, it's going to make a major impact on the longevity of your garden. And I wish you the best in your gardening journey. Definitely stay tuned. We have so much more content around gardening and homesteading, cooking, and creating a life that you love. Thanks, and see you guys again next time. Bye.